Morning, everyone. We are the Group 5 Brainy Badgers. By the way, I am Giselle Lausa, the presenter or the reporter of our group. Our topic for today is all about Republic Act 7277. It is an act providing for the rehabilitation, self-development, and self-reliance of disabled person and their integration into the mainstream of society and for other purposes. This Republic Act 7277, also known as Magna Carta for Disabled Person, was enacted for the primary reason that a person with disabilities have the same rights as other people. The measure promotes their full participation in society and integration into the mainstream of society. So, our title for this topic is Rights and Privileges of Disabled Person, Chapter 2, Education. So, we have here Section 12, Access to Quality Education. The state shall ensure that disabled persons are provided with adequate access to quality education and ample opportunities to develop their skills. So, adequate access to quality education of disabled persons such as literacy, numeracy, life skills, and peace education is often considered one of their primary goals of form of education for disabled person. It shall take appropriate steps to make such education accessible to all disabled persons. So, the appropriate steps to make education accessible to all disabled persons in order to function effectively and safely in jobs, education, and everyday life. People with disabilities need to have physical and social access to the same spaces, employment, goods, services, and community participation as everyone else. It shall be unlawful for any learning institution to deny a disabled person admission to any course it offers by reason of handicap or disability. The state shall take into consideration the special requirements of disabled person in the formulation of education policies and programs. So the person with disabilities have the same rights as other people. The measure to promote their full participation in society and integration into the mainstream of society. Shall the it shall the state shall take into consideration the special requirements of disabled person such as learn to create a spending plan, effectively use banks and manage their debt and credit. In addition, they need to understand public benefits, programs, and the disability service system. Next is it shall encourage learning institutions to take into account the special needs of disabled person with respect to the use of school facilities, class schedules, physical education requirements, and other pertinent considerations. So people with disabilities need health care and health programs for the same reason anyone else does to stay well, active, and part of the community. Next is the state shall also promote the provision by learning institution of auxiliary services that will facilitate the learning process for disabled person. So in facilitating learners with disabilities, there are successful strategies for teaching and supporting them such are probe them regularly to ensure understanding, encourage them to independent practices, present information in ways they can best adapt, and etc. Next is Section 13, Assistance to Disabled Students. So there is a program called SSI, Supplemental Security Income or SSI, that provide monthly benefits to people with disabilities. In addition to federal benefits, many states also offer additional support such as food assistance, healthcare services and goals supplemental income to pursue and work on other. So the state shall provide financial assistance to economically marginalized but deserving disabled students pursuing post-secondary or tertiary education. Such assistance may be in the form of scholarship grants, student loan programs, subsidies, and other incentives to qualify disabled students in both public and private school. Next is at least 5% of the allocation for the private education student financial assistance program created by virtue of RA 6728. So this Republic Act 6728, it is an act providing government assistance to students and teachers in private education and appropriate funds. Therefore, at least 5% of the allocation for the private education student financial assistance program that being created by RA 6728. Next is Section 14, Special Education. So, special education, it is a practice of educating students in a way that accommodates their individual differences, disabilities, and special needs. So the state shall establish, maintain, and support a complete, adequate, and integrated system of special education for the visually impaired. So when you say visually impaired, those are the person or a person with disabilities or someone who cannot see. Hearing impaired, so those are the person that are deaf people, and mentally retarded person and other type of exceptional children in all regions of the country. Towards this end, the Department of Education, Culture, and Sports shall establish special education classes in public school in cities or municipalities. It also established where viable Braille and record libraries in provinces, cities, or municipalities. So, viable or Braille, so these are a system of writing for the blind that was character made up of raised dots. So, these are the materials that intended for a person with disabilities, such are hearing impaired and visually impaired. So next is the national government shall allocate funds necessary for the effective implementation of the special education program nationwide. Local government units may likewise appropriate counterpart funds to supplement national funds. So the special education fund arises from the additional 5% to maintenance of public schools, construction and facilities and equipment, and books. Next is Section 15, Vocational or Technical and Other Training Programs. So, the state provide disabled persons with training in civics. Civics are those are skills relating to or of a citizen, city, or citizenship. Vocational efficiency means of conservation of resources and sports and physical fitness and others skills. So the Department of Education, Culture, and Sports shall establish in at least one government-owned vocational and technical school in every province, a special vocational and technical training program for disabled persons. It shall develop and implement sports and physical fitness programs specifically designed for disabled persons, taking into consideration the nature of their handicap. So, to develop and implement sports physical fitness program for disabled person, for them to have an opportunity to organize and participate in disability specific sports like Special Olympics as their sports program that is highly recognized worldwide. Next is section 16, non-formal education. So non-formal education, it is a structured learning situation which do not either the level of curriculum, syllabus, accreditation that associated with formal learning. So the state shall develop non-formal education programs that intended for the total human development of disabled person, uh like swimming classes for small children, sports club of various kinds for all ages, reading groups, choir, and so on. So these are the intended learning for them. Next is section 17. State universities and colleges, if viable and needed, the state universities or state colleges in each region or province shall responsible for the development of material appliances and technical aids for disabled person. Next is the development of training materials for vocational rehabilitation and special education instruction and the research on special problems, particularly of the visually impaired or the the person who cannot see, or hearing impaired, or the person who cannot hear, or the deaf one, and orthopedically impaired students, or students that have any condition or damage sustained to the musculoskeletal system included bones, joints, muscles, tendons, and ligaments, and multi-handicap and the elimination of social barriers and discrimination against disabled persons, and inclusion of the special education for disabled SPED course in the curriculum or special education. So the mentally retarded person, or a person that have a trouble speaking or intellectual disability problem in the brain, and multi-handicap, those are the person that has more than one disabling condition, like social barriers or discrimination against disabled person. The example of this uh, is is that can contribute to decrease functioning among people with disabilities. And special education course is one example of this is for that intended for a person with disabilities is Bachelor of Fine Arts. It is intended impaired learning that can benefit them. Next is the national government shall provide these state universities and colleges with the necessary special facilities for visually impaired, hearing impaired, speech impaired, and orthopedically impaired students. So thank you. That's all of our report.